Hey there, race fans. It's race day top 5 with me, Frank 5. First race of the playoffs in the books. What better way to start it with one of the most prestigious races in all of NASCAR, the Southern 500 in Darlington, South Carolina, the track too tough to tame, the lady in black. And boy, oh boy, she provided an intense and crazy final laps at Darlington, which definitely shakes up who are the top contenders and who is in big trouble for these next two races in the round of 16. And one of the championship contenders, one of the favorites, and my prediction to win the championship this year, got off to a hard start, winning his second career crown jewel in this race. Number 1, Kevin Harvick, one of the championship favorites other than Denny Hamlin this year, one of the top drivers to beat, picked up his 8th win of the season by winning last night's Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway, winning it over Austin Dillon, Joey Logano, Eric Jones, and William Byron. Kevin Harvick was pretty much quiet for most of the night in his throwback paint scheme to the early days of the Busch car, which was mostly the title sponsor for what was then the NASCAR Busch Series and what is now called the Xfinity Series. A very nice throwback paint scheme. Kevin Harvick pretty much was quiet most of the night. He was running like lower portion of the top 10 early in stage 1. Then he started progressing himself in stage 2, and by stage 3, he was there at the right place at the right time. Of course, late with about 15 laps to go, a big incident happened that definitely changed the outcome, and I'll get to that in a moment. But Kevin Harvick was just quietly consistent the entire night, running up front, doing what he needed to do, putting himself in a position to win, and a couple of cautions and a couple of pit strategies helped played right into his hands with him and Rodney Childers. Remember, a couple years ago, Kevin Harvick in 2016 was the dominant car and looked to be on his way to winning his second Southern 500 until, obviously, last night he won a second Southern 500. 4 years ago in 2016, he had the dominant car, but his pit crew cost him late because they were a little slow, and he had been very vocal about that in the past. But the last couple years, Kevin Harvick's pit crew has definitely stepped it up, and they haven't really made any mistakes whatsoever, especially when it comes to later in the race when the money's on the line and a race win and a spot to move on, gain more playoff points is on the line. Kevin Harvick and his crew came through at the end of last night, and they did a really good job. Got a little intense there towards the end trying to hold off Austin Dillon. He got a little loose in 3 and 4, and Austin Dillon was closing in, but Dillon also got loose and couldn't catch Kevin Harvick. So Harvick is the first driver officially locked into the round of 12. No surprise. We all thought he was going to get it anyways, whether it be a win or on points, but a win obviously just makes it all worthwhile, and Kevin Harvick is already on to the round of 12. Number 2, Martin Truex Jr. dominated last night's race. Martin Truex, the 2016 winner of the Southern 500, was so dominant last night, winning both stages and leading a season-high 195 laps. And he clearly had the dominant car with this 550 horsepower package last night. He could control the lead with about a 3-second lead, a 4-second lead, a 5-second lead. Martin Truex just definitely had the car to beat last night. And he's been on a roll lately, literally finishing in the top 5 every race leading up to the playoffs last night. And he looked to be in control of the race until, with the big story, 13 laps to go, trying to pass Chase Elliott for the lead. Truex tries to slide him in front of Elliott, but unfortunately clips him. Both hit the wall. Both had to, unfortunately, fall behind with a lot of damage. Truex pitted, and ultimately he finished with 1 lap down in 22nd place. He went for it. He apologized to the 9 team afterwards, says, I feel bad. I didn't mean to do that. I was just trying to go for the win. And you know what? He was trying. And Rubin's racing. That's exactly what it is. But Truex fans, despite not winning the race, the points cushion that you have, it's pretty comfortable. And your next couple of tracks you're going to, you're fairly good at. So I don't think Martin Truex Jr. fans should be worried about him trying to advance to the round of 12. But I will say this. Martin Truex Jr. probably just elevated himself, despite last night's result, as a championship contender by how well he ran, dominating the entire race. Martin Truex Jr. fans, stay optimistic. Your second win of the season is coming, and that could put you in the conversation to contend with Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. Number 3 will be driver recap for Chase Elliott. The other story, the contact with Truex. First of all, Chase Elliott early on in the race in a throwback paint scheme to Jimmy Johnson's 2009 Cup Series Championship with the low scheme. Looked really nice on the 9 car, and early on last night started on the pole, led the first 81 laps. He looked really strong, and then obviously Truex came up there. Elliott finished 8th in stage 1. Stage 2 we were up there, and then we started falling back a little bit after we had a little graze with the wall. We had to settle for 13th place at the end of stage 2, but we started picking ourselves back in the top 10, and we kept gaining more positions, especially other guys who had different strategies. We were on the same strategy at the time with Kevin Harvick for tires. We passed him late with about 45 laps to go, and then all of a sudden the caution for debris came, which made Alan Gustafson very happy because that put him back in the game, and they were on an equal strategy with everybody else because everyone had to pit for tires. Because tires mean a lot here at Darlington. As old as the surface is, and these tires can literally start to go away after 15, 20 laps after you put a fresh set on. And Elliott was just right up there, and he looked to be on his way to redeeming himself from the second Darlington race we had earlier this year, where it got away from him when he got wrecked by Kyle Busch on the front straightaway. But as I mentioned, with 13 to go, Truex Jr. closing on Chase Elliott, tries to make a move to the bottom, forces him up in the wall. Chase Elliott has a lot of damage, and unfortunately, we went from the lead to a 20th place finish. He was a little unhappy afterwards, but I mean, he wasn't totally mad at Martin Truex Jr. I mean, he said that's what happened. He complimented his team on a good race car. The finish definitely sucks, but the bright side for Elliott fans, including myself, we are above the cutoff line by 12 points. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good margin to be above going into the next two races. But I really would have wanted to win that race to lock ourselves in, because next week is Richmond, and Elliott's been hit or miss there. He just really hasn't done well at Richmond. I mean, 2 years ago, he finished second in the spring and fifth in the fall, which is the playoff race. And last year, he was just a top 15 guy most of the night. So hopefully, if we could squeeze a top 10 out of this upcoming weekend in Richmond, or better yet, win it if we can. There's no practice or qualifying. If we can come away with a solid result next week at Richmond, like a top 5, top 10, I'm feeling good going into Bristol. And I know Elliott will run up front at Bristol because last time we were there for the All-Star race, he won it. And the spring race this year, he was surely one of the top 3 fastest cars in the race, and he looked to be winning that thing if it wasn't for the contact with Joey Logano. So the finish last night for Chase Elliott, it sucks, but I still think he'll make it into the round of 12 without a problem, and especially the round of 12, he'll make it to the round of 8 when he goes to the Roval and literally kicks everybody in the rear end. So I think Chase Elliott will make it regardless. Number 4, the throwback paint schemes that we had last night, they were just incredible. Throwing it back to the champions of NASCAR and all the past contenders that we've seen over the years. Some very nice throwback paint schemes. One of my favorites is probably Jimmy Johnson's throwback paint scheme to honor the other 2 7-time champs, Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty. Richard Petty had the blue and red on the hood and the roof of the 48 car, and then the entire side of the car was just that famous silver and black colors that the 3 car had when Dale Earnhardt was driving. It was just an iconic paint scheme. The Hendrick guys honoring Jimmy Johnson, with Elliott running the 09 championship scheme, Alex Bowman with the 06 championship scheme, Jimmy Johnson's first ever championship, and William Byron honoring Jimmy with the 2013 All-Star race win throwback scheme. That'll look really nice. Kevin Harvick, as I mentioned, the Busch Beer scheme looked incredible. Clint Board throwing it back to early days of peak antifreeze, and Kyle Petty when he drove for Felix Sabates. That was a really cool paint scheme. Eric Almirola throwing back to Fireball Roberts. Cole Custer throwing back to Curtis Turner. Kyle Busch ran a retro 04 M&M scheme that honored Elliott Sadler. John R. Nemechek also ran an Elliott Sadler scheme when he drove for the Wood Brothers in 1999. There were a lot of incredible throwback paint schemes last night. And another one I think that's a little underrated is Bubba Wallace ran the white and green scheme that Richard Petty drove back then when his number 43 car crashed in practice. They had to bring out a backup, but they didn't have one, so they borrowed this number 6 green and white car, put STP on the hood, and that was one of the most iconic schemes other than the famed number 43. Richard Petty drove a number 6 car with white and green on the side, and that definitely filled in with the Cash App scheme that Bubba Wallace had last night. It looks really nice. There were just so many cool throwback paint schemes last night, running at Darlington, all getting up towards the wall, getting Darlington stripes. It was just an incredible moment, and it was also awesome at that race last night to have fans. There were a couple fans in attendance, limited attendance. Kevin Harvick obviously gave a shout out to all of them when he was celebrating, and post-race interview with Marty Snyder on NBCSN. The fans there was a good amount of fans there for the most part, based on the attendance level that they wanted due to restrictions because of COVID. Hopefully by next year, we will have a full packed house for the Cookout Southern 500 next year, and we will have fans, and they'll be able to experience the joys and thrills of Darlington on Labor Day weekend, because it's just iconic, and it was good to have some fans in attendance for this event last night. It was just awesome. And number 5, winners and losers of the playoffs last night. Obviously, we talked about Kevin Harvick was the winner. Mark Truex Jr. Chase Elliott losing the race kind of hurts, but I still think they're winners because they ran well, and they definitely have established themselves as possible contenders to compete with Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin if they make it to the championship 4. They ran well. I want to give a quick shout out to a couple, some winners that really worked out. Upgradedly, the first kind of winner, other than Kevin Harvick, Austin Dillon. I expected Austin Dillon to get eliminated in the round of 16, but Austin Dillon made a comment saying this round suits us because he's run well at these tracks, and he says, I feel like we have better race cars than we have in the past to get to the round of 12. And Austin Dillon last night had a good race car. Had to start the rear front, improved adjustments, worked his way to the front, and literally running down Kevin Harvick in that iconic Junior Johnson paint scheme. That was incredible. I mean, Austin Dillon definitely shocked a lot of people last night. He's 10 points above the cut line going into Richmond this upcoming weekend. So, I mean, Austin Dillon, I would be a little bit shocked but if he made the round of 12, but after the way he ran last night, why not? Austin Dillon looked really good. He almost won that race. He could have locked himself into the round of 12 and possibly maybe pushed himself to maybe make it to the round of 8 if he won last night. Austin Dillon definitely did a good job last night. Joey Logano rebounded from a little checkup on a restart after he got rammed in from behind by Corey LaJoie. He went from like 26 back up to third with a back bumper literally beat in. That was a great run for Logano. Byron lost track position, got himself a tough fight. Kurt Busch played some incredible strategy last night, staying on old tires early in stage 1. Got much needed stage points to help him because he came into this playoffs without any bonus points whatsoever as far as playoff points accumulated. No wins, no stage wins. Kurt Busch had a really good run last night. He got a top 10 out of it. He did a really good job. Eric Almirola was kind of quiet for the most part of the night, but he got away with a top 10 at the very end. But the big losers of the night, by far, were some of the Ford drivers. I mean, Clint Bowyer is currently out. He's in a tie with Almirola for 12th right now, but he's out. But he could still make it. I mean, he runs really well at Richmond. He could have a chance to run up front there. Cole Custer, 3 points out. Not totally bad. He finished 12th last night for a rookie. That's not totally bad. But I felt like, I still think Cole Custer may struggle at Richmond. But the biggest losers, obviously, are the bottom two. Ryan Blaney and Matt DiBenedetto. Before the race even got started, Ryan Blaney failed pre-race inspection when it discovered that he had 5 pounds overweight of ballast, which is a problem, which is like the foam that keeps cars jacked up. And Denny Hamlin had a problem with that earlier this year, and his crew chief got a 4-race suspension. Ryan Blaney had his crew chief Todd Gordon ejected from the racetrack. He had to start the rear. He had to pit early before stage 2 got started because he complained he had a flat tire, and he finished 24th, 1 lap down. I'm going to talk about Blaney again in a second. And the other one, Matt DiBenedetto, he really struggled last night in the throwback scheme to Marvin Panch when he won the 61 Daytona 500. He really struggled last night. I mean, I expected Matt DiBenedetto was going to be eliminated from this round anyways, although he could run well at Bristol, considering he's been close there before. I think Matt DiBenedetto is going to have a tough time. But Ryan Blaney, I thought Ryan Blaney would make it to the round of 12, but after last night, I think he's in trouble because next week's Richmond, and Ryan Blaney sucks at Richmond. He doesn't have a single top 10. His best finish there, I believe, is 16th. That's how bad Ryan Blaney is at Richmond. I don't think he's going to run well at Richmond whatsoever. He's going to need to win Bristol, a track where he's so good at. That's literally going to be... Ryan Blaney may need a lucky leprechaun to help him run well at Richmond. That's how bad his luck is at that facility. He needs to have a good run, or else Ryan Blaney's not going to make it to the round of 12 the way he's been running. So he has to get a good run in at Richmond, or else he's going to be out. But anyways, that's all to talk about as far as the first round of the playoffs go. Kevin Harvick, obviously the winner, and a couple of other guys, championship contenders, possibly showcasing how good they are. Didn't get the finish they'd hoped for, but they definitely showed speed last night in the 9 and the 19 cars. So this upcoming race is Richmond Raceway. No fans in attendance, sadly, Virginia. But we come into this race with Martin Truex Jr., who's won there before, looking to get a victory. Kyle Busch, he still hasn't won a race yet, though he did have a good top 10 run last night. Richmond is a good place to turn it around. He's won there many times. Clint Bowyer, he's below the cut line. He's in a tie with Almirola. He wins, he's in, and he runs well there, and he runs well the next couple of tracks. But Ryan Blaney, Matt DiBenedetto, Cole Custer, they're literally going to need a Hail Mary to get into these round of 12 and have a good run at Richmond. So we shall see what happens under the lights this upcoming Saturday night at Richmond. So in the meantime, subscribe, like, congrats to Kevin Harvick, winner of the Cookout Southern 500. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you after to recap Richmond next Sunday. And just a little FYI, for any NASCAR fan that loves football out there, football starts this week, baby! And I can't wait. Honestly, I love NASCAR, but I can't wait for football. It's back, baby! Have a nice week.